I'd like to add my welcome to everybody here who's not from the Rose City to our wonderful city here. We're really excited to have hosted Volution, and we're very excited to continue to be a great participant in Volution in the years to come. We're so excited we've had some unscheduled greeters at the 6th Avenue door. So I thank you all for being here even through all of that. At this point, I actually wanted to break from our normal program to actually do something very important here. And I'd like to bring our rail evolutionary champion, Earl Blumenauer, to the podium one more time, please.
Thanks, Neil. Thank you all. So how's Volution been for you? Is it okay? Useful? Any interesting people here? Well, I have been getting positive feedback over the course of the conference, and I will tell you that personally I feel that it is the best one that we have had to date, and there's a reason for it. There are some dedicated volunteers on the steering committee, people on the program committee who put untold hours. I'm sure if their employers and their families really knew how much they invested in it, they would face some sort of term limit movement. Luckily, that's not the case. But it's also true that even with the most dedicated volunteer base and with sympathetic partners, families, and employers, it requires some adult supervision. And for the entire program, there has been one person who has been sort of the Volution glue, who's held it together, who's ready to start gearing up for the next conference, even before the dust settles on this one. A person who is adept at herding cats and being able to be unflappable, even though there are all sorts of bizarre things that happen every conference that, you know, are unexpected and unintended, but you just navigate through it. And our rail evolutionary, the glue who's held it together, is Mary Simon. Mary. Now, usually, as we conclude the conference, to a crowd that's about half this size, I will say, we acknowledge Mary, and she kind of comes out from behind a pillar in the back, and we sort of embarrass her and talk about her and Bill Schumacher, our contractor, who does an outstanding job. But this year is a little different because Mary is not going to pick up the day after while the dust is settling and start dealing with the next conference. And she's decided that she's going to take a break. That next year we're on our own. And Mary, we would just like to express our deep appreciation for all that you have done to make these conferences productive, to bring people together, to make it smooth, to help people appear smarter than they are. No mean trick with some of us, I will tell you. And just deeply appreciate everything you've done to make this work.
Great.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Great. Thank you. Well, you know, it's a real honor to be amongst some of the most wonderful, dedicated, compassionate people, you know, on the planet, and to see over the, 18 to 20 years that I've participated in working with all of this, that, as Earl says, that many of the things that you were talking about today are commonplace across the whole nation, and not only in the New York Times, but in the International Herald Tribune, but they're also in the small newspapers, in the radios, and conversations, and on the blogs, and just a very common experience that people really care all across this nation for livable communities and what it makes a difference to have a place to, find a great magazine, or to go to the library, or to step on a bus or a streetcar or walk or bike and make a difference in their communities. And I have been so fortunate, because of the conference, to travel to so many different cities across the U.S. and learn about the culture and the taxes, and where do people have breakfast, or know they have dinner meetings, or whatever they do. And it's just, I've been so fortunate to meet so many people and to have so many wonderful friends, both on the National Steering Committee and our Board of Directors, but so many people. There's probably 40 to 60 to 80 people in each of the probably 13 or 14 cities where we've held the conferences, who've also become part of our dedicated group of people. And we have not lost one city over all these years. All of these cities have remained, even though the conference may or may not ever go to their region again, they're still committed, and I still, fortunately or unfortunately, I know all of their phone numbers, but now I've had to add, 3 more digits to it. So, but anyhow, I want to thank everybody for your constant participation, for your unbelievable passion, your positivity, and your commitment, and you've all continued to make a difference in the lives of those at the table, but in your own communities. And I thank you very much for all the love and care that you've shown me and to your country as well. Thank you.
Mary, thank you very much. By now you've all ridden our transit system, and you've seen how our region's transit system translates into livability, mobility, and vitality. But let me tell you just a little bit more. This is my 30-second free commercial, by the way. We carry more people than any other transit system our size in the country. We now carry about 100 million rides on an annual basis. We're the 23rd largest metropolitan area in the U.S., but in transit ridership, we rank number 8 per capita. More than 80% of our region have ridden transit in the last year. It means that people are using public transit not just to get to work, but to get to recreation, to get to connect with their community, to get to sporting events. And this success didn't happen by accident. It happened because of visionaries like Congressman Blumenauer and many others. It happened because cities, regional governments, state legislators, and our congressional delegation, Republican and Democrat historically, agree that an investment in public transit is an investment in the livability of our region and the well-being of our citizens. It happened because our leaders and our citizens understand the important connection between land use and transportation, which is what this conference has been all about from the beginning. And because of that, our citizens now can easily take Max to a Trailblazer or soccer game, or to the zoo, or to the airport, or the convention center, to Saturday Market, to downtowns and cities and jobs all around the region. Our next connection will be to the city of Milwaukee and our southeast corridor and North Clackamas County. So we will continue to grow this system, we will continue to grow ridership, and we will continue to grow a region that we continue to be, hopefully, a model for the nation and perhaps the world. The Rail Volution graphic behind me says so much. It says a lot about partnership, it says a lot about the energy that I felt throughout this convention, and it talks about passion. And that means that we need to continue to focus on these issues. We need to continue to build. And so to talk about how we're going to do that in the Rail Volution ahead, it's my pleasure to welcome Gabe Klein, the Director of Transportation from the City of Washington, D.C., and Harriett Tregoning, the D.C. Director of the Office of Planning, to talk about what they have planned for 2011. Excuse me.
Thanks so much, Neil. Yeah, thank God it's not 2001 again. I'm a little embarrassed to say this is my first time at Volution. But what an incredible conference is. I'm impressed on so many levels. The energy and passion that you see in this room is really unparalleled. And I've been to a lot of different types of conferences, but I don't think any as powerful as Volution. The stories of progress that we hear, the diversity of the communities that are represented here. We were in a streetcar meeting yesterday with folks from Kenosha, folks from LA, and everything in between, East Coast and West Coast. And I'm also really impressed by the tremendous amount of work and effort that goes into a conference of this type with mobile workshops, et cetera. And it is a little daunting for next year, particularly without Mary. But we will pull it off, and there's going to be some really amazing stuff that we'll get to show you. But to the volunteers, and there's a lot of volunteers, and the Volution staff, I'd just like to say thank you again and ask you guys to give them another round of applause for their work. And I'd like to thank everybody here for all of your ideas for next year. We're going to work hard to match it, to match this year. So about DC, we actually recently launched a Share It campaign, one of our first advertising campaigns as a DOT beyond PSAs. And the slogan is, ride it, walk it, drive it, share it. And, you know, if we want healthy communities, sustainable communities, we need to give people safe, convenient choices for getting around without having to invest in a car. In fact, our goal, because we're such a transient region, is for people to come there and to see all of the options we have and to realize that they absolutely don't need to buy a car and it'll actually be a burden to them, cost and hassle-wise. And I think what we've learned is when you make transit work for people, and you don't get so caught up in just the transit itself, and you market the services properly to people, and you educate them on the costs, the cost savings to them, people will choose transit on their own. And that's what we want to do. So as we're working to give people the tools they need to make different choices in how they commute, work, play, we're adjusting our streets' physical makeup, and we'll be showing you this when you come to DC as well, to reflect that. In fact, Monday, before I left to come out here, I signed our first complete streets policy for Washington, D.C. Thank you. Thanks very much. Has anybody out there actually been to D.C. in the last 30 days or so? Raise your hand. Yeah? Okay. That's actually quite a few people. If you have been in the last 30 days, you'll see a shiny new red bike share system. And it's a regional system. We were the first city in North America, or state, depending on how you view us, to have a bike sharing system. It was a small pilot system with 10 stations and 100 bikes, and it went over very well. But it didn't have the capability to scale and grow, and it wasn't regional. So we scrapped it, and we just launched the largest bike sharing system in the U.S., with over 1,000 bikes, 1,100 bikes and 110 stations, a regional system. Thank you. And again, because the system is catering to what people want, where they want it, and to their needs, they're using it in droves. Actually, as of yesterday, I think the information we put out for the conference said we had 2,800 members as of Friday. As of Monday, we had 3,000 members, and we're averaging 100 members a day signing up. So it's really going well. And the more our streets are filled with bikes, the more others we think will feel confident on a bike themselves. And I really feel like, at least in D.C., and definitely here in Portland, of course, we're heading towards a tipping point where we're mainstreaming the bicycle again and making it something that is usable all the time, not just on weekends. And of course, you know, bikes are most useful in a dense urban environment that has the infrastructure to support their use. And that's really what we're talking about here at this conference, coupling transit in the built environment to create healthy communities where people can live, work, and play. And Portland, by the way, is such a great example of that. I just want to move here every time I come here, Earl. It's gorgeous. We'll talk after. I'm just kidding. But when you come to DC next year, that's exactly what you're going to see. You're going to see city after city, neighborhood after neighborhood, either in flux, or perhaps we're already there in some places. In other areas, like Tyson's Corner, we're just beginning the planning process to remake that into a walkable, livable community. And what makes the DC region unique is that we're trying so many things. And we are, of course, the capital of the free world, too. But, or at least the country. You'll see completed national models for TOD in the city, in the urban core, but as well in Virginia and southern Maryland. You'll see neighborhoods that were decimated by the '68 riots, post-war white flight, and are in the midst of a dramatic comeback thanks to our Great Streets program, the great work of our Office of Planning, and streetcar investments, to be honest, that are being made in the district. The use of high-capacity buses and soon streetcars along suburban corridors in Virginia and Maryland to better connect Metro Rail and activity centers. And you'll see new communities being built on abandoned rail yards. And of course, our metro system, rail and bus system, which is the second busiest transit system in the United States. So there's really just so much going on in our region, and I'm very excited to have everybody come next year to DC. And we guarantee it'll be fun. It won't just be buttoned up in blue suits and white shirts, I promise. DC is not just that. You know, somebody said yesterday that Portland isn't just talking about sustainability and livability, they're actually living it. And, you know, we have the same goal in DC, to really move beyond the talk and start to make the hard choices, sometimes the unpopular choices, so we can really start walking the walk. And I'd like to roll a video that we made at DDOT, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can see it for yourself.
Today, the National Capital Region boasts an incredibly robust portfolio of transit-oriented development projects. The area is making great progress forward while borrowing liberally from its past to create truly livable communities.
This last year and a half, since I've been DOT director, we've been looking a lot at what the city used to look like, to get a roadmap, really, for what the city could and should look like in the future.
There's no better example, perhaps, than the resurgence of the streetcar. At one time, there were more than 200 miles of streetcar tracks in Washington, D.C., and entire communities were built around the rails. Today, construction is underway in the district on 2 initial lines, with revenue service expected to start in 2012. Overall, the city is planning for 37 miles of new track on 8 lines to complement the current transit options in the city and better connect existing and emerging neighborhoods.
We don't really have a transportation system outside of bus that's focused on linking neighborhoods and stimulating economic growth. And that's something that the streetcar definitely did the first time, and we think it can do it again.
Neighboring Arlington County is also looking to the streetcar to improve transit service and to support the revitalization of commercial corridors like Columbia Pike.
And I think what you're going to see is the evolution over time of a new network of light rail that kind of fits in between the heavy rail of the subway and the bus system.
Arlington and the district have also teamed up to bring another old-fashioned form of transportation back in fashion, the bicycle. In September, they launched Capital Bike Share, the largest bike-sharing system in the United States. Already, 2,800 members are using the distinctive red bikes for short, eco-friendly trips that require no capital investment, just a helmet.
When you look at old historic pictures of Washington, and to be honest, many other cities, particularly New York, Seattle, San Francisco, a lot of the older cities back then, the streets were flooded with people walking and biking. And when they weren't doing that, they were hopping on the streetcar via wooden platforms. And so we are absolutely bringing those systems back.
Streetcars and bike sharing are very visible signs of a larger transformation taking place across the region. In places where sprawl and crawl was once the planning mantra of the day, now transit-oriented development is spreading and taking hold in many different ways. Here, you can see TOD in every stage, from the already established Roslyn-Ballston corridor in Arlington, along Metro's Orange Line, long recognized as a national model, to Tyson's Corner, where an effort is underway to transform the auto-centric business district into a thriving urban center. Its grid of wide streets and office towers can be hostile to pedestrians, but transit is finally coming. A new metro line is under construction, and a new comprehensive plan calls for improvements to make walking easier and safer. Other examples abound across the area on both sides of the Potomac River.
That really is the way everybody talks now in every jurisdiction, to one degree or another. They recognize that we've got to find a way to do some things differently. Otherwise, we're just going to be caught in congestion, and eventually our economy is going to suffer.
Even in places that were already urban, like downtown D.C., exciting changes are taking place, and transit-oriented development has already demonstrated its value. A great example is the historic neighborhood of Columbia Heights. Ravaged by the riots of 1968, now it is a vibrant mixed-use community with a thriving retail center, all within walking distance of a relatively new Metro rail station.
I don't think there's any place you can go in America that has more going on by way at different stages. Again, some very developed, some finished product. If you go to some of the station areas like several parts of the District of Columbia, like Bethesda and like the Roslyn-Ballston corridor here. But you can also see places that are kind of in transition, where new things are being tried. And you can go to some places that aren't there at all, but for which there's just planning. So I don't think there's a single better place to study what can be done in all the stages of its development than the National Capital Region.
I think there's a lot for people to see, as well as the fact that we have streetcar lines under construction. We have a great circulator bus system, and we have a brand new bike sharing system, which is the largest in the United States. Not to mention that this is the capital of the free world, and you might be able to do a little lobbying while you're here on Capitol Hill.